Hello and welcome back to Sharks Happen. My name is Hal. I am your host, going over shark attacks from the 1900s till present, mostly large sharks. We'll get started in a second here. Got my little buddy here. He's a little great white shark, although, you know, with this tail, with this upper lobe being so much bigger than the lower lobe, if they put a little notch right in there, you know, notch it nice and good, it'd be a bull shark, or a tiger. It'd be a little longer over here and a little skinnier. But I'm going to go over great white sharks with this shark and tell you what all these fins are called, what all of it does, and we'll talk about the brain a little bit. Not all these sharks are the same as far as brains. We're going to start out over in Baja, Mexico in 1954. Rosario Bianci was out doing some skin diving, and this is from Victor Coppelson. It was a fatality. There are no details, so we know that somebody was attacked. She was killed, so we're going to put it down as an attack and a fatality, but not a predation. We don't have that information. We'll get moving on. Okay, now we're going to get started over in Crowdy Head, New South Wales, Australia. The date, April 13th, 2013. Alan Saunders, 51 years old. He and his brother were releasing sharks from a net. They're in knee-deep water. Gray nurse sharks are protected in Australia, and he had said that he would have been fined if they didn't release the sharks before they hauled in the fish. So they're releasing the sharks. He's with his brother. It's 2 in the afternoon. Like I said, they're in knee-deep water. They're releasing sharks, and his brother releases one shark. Well, a different shark came back and bit both of Alan's legs. Bit him pretty good. He ended up going to the hospital afterwards. No arteries were severed, so he had a bunch of puncture marks. They're round, sharp teeth. They look like tons of them. The ones that are in all those, they look all scary, and all the aquariums that have sharks, they'll have a gray nurse shark. He said it felt like an electric charge, though, the bite itself. So it must have, you know, did one of those funny bone feelings or something to him when he got hit. But that's a weird thing to say. But luckily, you know, no major injury on this one. It's considered a provoked attack because it was caught in that and they were letting it go, and it doesn't matter that another one came over, it was provoked. Not going to count this in the stats, thought we'd go over it, and we'll move on. Okay, now we head over to a surfing spot called Bunkers. It's in Eureka, California. The date, October 30th, 1993. Robert Williams, 26 years old. He's out there doing some surfing. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon. Out about 200 yards from shore, there's 4 or 5 surfers out there that are laying on their boards talking, waiting for the right wave. So he paddles his way out and joins them, and they're in 25-foot deep water. He says he went ahead and got himself 15 yards away from them after a short time so he could get ready for a wave. He saw one that he wanted and started paddling out to where it was at. He said just then he was hit and smacked right up in the air. And he says just as he got up into the air, he looked down and he saw the shark just for a second, got back down, and the shark had his leg in the board. So he clamped on his leg in the board, upper thigh it sounds like, got him by the thigh and clamped him on the board, took both underwater about 4 feet. He looks down at the shark and he beats on the shark's head, on its snout, with no effect. This is a great white shark. He hits it in the head, nothing's happening. He sees the eye there. He takes his thumb and pushes it in the eye. Shark releases him and does a spinning, shaking its head side to side, and spirals its way out to sea. This isn't the first time I heard that kind of a reaction. In the Indianapolis, there's a Marine that's on one of the rafts. He's kind of in charge of a group of 17 men that start out, but his name is Giles McCoy. He's one of my favorites in the whole story of the Indy. And it sounds like a mako shark. It sounds like a long fin mako shark because it was dark black almost. So he said that the shark's nose came up into his raft and he kicked it, and his toe went into this eye and it spiraled itself down and out of the way. So I've heard of that before when you hit him in the eye. They ended up getting him up. He got on a surfboard and then he noticed all the damage to it. He had hours of surgery and months of therapy to get, you know, recovered from this attack, and he did survive. You know, this is a tough one because he had to poke it in the eye to get it to release him. But I still think that this is just, you know, one of those hits on a board and mistaken identity on a board, and that's how I'm going to put it down, not a predation and not a fatality. Okay, now we head over to Turnberry Beach, which is in Forster, Australia. The date is May 18th, 2021. Mark Sanguinetti, 59 years old. He's out doing some surfing, and he's out by the Turnberry breakwall. There's other surfers around. He notices the shark and screams a warning to everybody else. There's a shark, get out of the water. 4.5 meter great white shark, you're talking 15-footer. just after he shouts his warning to everybody, he's bitten. It grabs him by the thigh. All they say is that it grabbed him, bit him in the thigh, and 5 seconds later it had hit him again. And people went out, got him into shore. The damage to his thigh was too bad. It probably got the teeth in there, and then they rake back. And when that happens, the teeth go in, and that jaw that separates and goes out, it'll go back into position. And it just scrapes all that meat and fat and everything. It just scrapes it back a couple inches, 2-3 inches at times. It also can lift flaps, big flaps of skin. We'll get into that on a couple of these other attacks. We're about to get into a couple of pretty gruesome ones. And so I'm thinking the teeth got in and raked him. And when that happens, you're going to lose a ton of blood, probably severed an artery, but he ended up bleeding out and he did not survive. It was an attack and not a predation. We head over to Samurai, Papua. This is in 1956. This attack comes straight out of the shark attack files from H. David Baldrich's book. Titus Tiso is his name. This gentleman was out doing some spearfishing. He's a young man, and he's out doing some spearfishing and speared himself a fish. I don't know how soon before, how deep the water he was in. All I know is that he saw a shark coming, and it was a tiger shark, and a large tiger shark. It was coming at him slowly and deliberately, and he let out a piercing scream. And it was too late. The shark just finished its slow movement to get over there and gave him one bite. Single bite, and he ended up taking off the arm, the shoulder, all the way to the heart. His heart was removed. So this tiger shark took off the whole chunk. Kind of like Lewis Boren. That's the only thing I can think of when he was laying on his board. But this is just a massive bite. It's not a predation. May have eaten the arm. These tiger sharks will eat a body part, but that ain't going to fill up a shark. It left the body. The body was found in 10 feet of water later, missing the arm, that part of the chest. And that's it. We're going to put it down as an attack, a fatality, but not an attempt to predate. And that's our story of Titus Tiso. We're going to finish out our unprovoked attacks over in Panama. The date is November 11th, 1928. November 11th being Panama's Independence Day. They had a rowing race, and one Abraham Moreno, 17 years old, was on a boat watching this race, obviously. And when the race ended, he decided he was going to swim to shore. He jumped in the water, and when he got about 50 yards from shore, he's well within sight of people on the boat and maybe people on the shore, but people on boats could see him. He's 50 yards from shore in 6 feet of water, and a shark comes up and attacks him repeatedly. Now there's boats anchored, of course. He jumped off of one. They got to lift their anchors to get over there. So the shark is repeatedly attacking him. By the time the boat gets 10 yards from the shark, from the body, the shark takes the last bite and disappears. They grab the body up onto the boat and take it in. This is just horrendous. He ended up getting bit. His left leg, mid shin, so right between your knee and your foot, that's severed. On the right leg, it's severed, but it's dangling by flesh. So the leg's still there, it's dangling by flesh. He's been bit in the abdomen, and his intestines are protruding. He's been bit in the arm, and the fingers are missing, and that's about it for the damage that was done to him. Shortly afterwards, a shark was caught, a 9-foot bull shark. They got the leg out of him, and they got the other tissue out of the shark. So they actually caught the shark that ended up doing this. Is a 9-foot bull shark. This is definitely an attempt to predate, and this is what sharks do. I mean, that's open ocean type stuff. That's just gross, that's sitting there chewing on people. Just disgusting, but it does happen. So that's our story of them. We're going to get into the final segment where I tell you a little bit of what I learned about sharks back in, I had to look at the date on the book. It's 1991, because they brought up the shark attack file, but it had been dormant for since 1968, so I didn't know why they brought it up, so I looked at the date. But 91, that's the date that this stuff was published by Richard Ellis and John McCosker, where I learned everything I know about great white sharks, and I'm going to let you know some of that next. Got my little buddy here. I'm gonna get a little closer to you guys. Got my little buddy here. You can see him here. We'll call him a great white shark, even though this isn't equal. Now, a great white shark is part of the mackerel sharks, and mackerel sharks all have this tail fin, which is called a caudal fin. It's equal. The upper lobe and the lower lobe of the caudal fin, they are equal size. That gives them more power. The more equal these two fins are, the more power the fish has, the faster it's going to be. So these are the fastest sharks out there. The mackerel family is the great white, poor beagle, basking shark. There's a couple others there. The mako and the salmon shark. I think that covers them all. But anyway, we'll start from the back here. Of course, this is your tail fin. It's also called the caudal fin. Just before the caudal fin starts, there's a caudal notch. There's going to be a little notch here. Most of them have a notch. I don't have one here. Most of them have a notch in the tail, in the upper lobe, and that's called the caudal notch. This one's called a precaudal notch on the top before it starts into there. Not that it matters. In the middle of this, there's a caudal line. That's the center line for this. I just call it the center line, but it's the caudal line. You're going to have a fin back here. This is your first dorsal fin. So this is dorsal fin. This is your second dorsal fin when you see it back here. Some of them have 3 of them up there. So I don't know if they call them first, second, and third or what, but that's your first dorsal fin and your second dorsal fin, and then you have your caudal fin. Now down below, down here, right by the tail on the bottom, that's the anal fin. And then you're going to have 2 fins on the shark that are up closer to the dorsal fin. These are your pelvic fins. So these are pelvic fins, these 2 down here. On males, they're going to have two little pistols sticking out, and those are your, what the hell is the name of those? I can't remember what they're called. But that's the male reproductive organs. If it's a male, it's going to have 2 of those sticking out. We get up here, and there's a spot right like above, I think it's called not the antennae, no, I'm trying to think of the name of it. There's a spot right here above the pectoral fin. It's got a name. The dorsal fin, we go in front of that. You have the gills, of course, and then you have the eye. You have the nostrils, and then you're going to have little dots going all along the front of the, there they are, you can see them. They look like, you know, those, when people were doing their hair, and you could see those, what did they call, plugs, I guess. That's what that looks like. But that is the ampullae lorenzini, and that is where they pick up electrical senses. Electrical senses go into there. So that's their electrical sensory, is those little holes up there. And then behind the eye, I think it's behind the eye. Yeah, I think it's right behind the eye. On sharks, there is what's called a spiracle, and it's a little opening that those sharks that sit on the ground, that just sit there, they can release oxygen through there. So when they get the oxygen out of the water, they can release the water out of there, I guess. When they're taking the water out of it, they release that from there. Or they take it in. But it's got to do, the spiracle is only really working on sharks that can sit still on the bottom of the water. Along the side of the body, you have the lateral line, which starts almost at the center here, and it goes almost the center of the shark, and then it goes up above the gills. Now this is what picks up your movement, your pressure changes. A fish is sitting there, it's going ahead and struggling. This line is what picks that up. So it's a little line that goes along the side of the body, and not only will this pick up differences in pressure in the water, it's going to pick up differences in pressure in the air. If the barometer drops and a storm is coming, these things know it first. So that's about the main thing. The jaws, of course, you have the top jaw, which can extend out, which you see it look all gummy and stuff. That's the jaw actually extending, detaching itself a bit from the upper jaw, and then reaching out and then scraping back. So the upper jaw is not really connected. It can free float and pull back. That's what does plenty of damage to people. The brain. This is why I wanted to go over this. People say that it has a small brain. It doesn't have a small brain. It doesn't need a huge brain. It doesn't need a brain like ours. And I want to get into this real quick. Most animals, you know, humans especially, their brain is a ball. And our brain, that ball takes care of everything. It takes care of me talking, me wanting to put together a show. Whatever I do, this brain is taking care of it, just like everybody else's, just like this. Well, a great white shark, its brain starts right up in the front of its head. It's got 2 little olfactory sacs, they're called, connected to olfactory lobes that lead back to between the eyes. Now between the eyes, there's all kinds of different, you got to get that book and see all, it's like an engine, all this stuff in a brain of a shark. People say that they're small brains, they're not. It connects from eye to eye. In the middle of it, there's what's called the midbrain, which is the optic lobe, which is for seeing. Now these aren't as big as the eyes, and there's two of them. And people say they have small brains. Well, I don't know where they get that. Behind that, so just behind the eyes, there's a big spot, which is the medulla oblongata. And this is what grabs the sensory from the ampullae lorenzini and from the caudal line. So this medulla oblongata takes care of that. Another section takes care of breathing. Another section takes care of all the muscle movements. Their brain is not like ours where it has to run their body. Their brain is free to do what it wants. Ellis and McCosker bring up that everything we know about sharks' intelligence is biased and slanted because they use dogfish and spotted dogfish, which are very primitive sharks and not smart at all. There are sharks out there that they can teach, that they can learn to go through a complicated maze to get their food, and they can learn it quick. These are not stupid fish. People, I don't know where they get that it's a small brain, because what are you comparing it to? What else has a brain that's set up like an engine like this thing? So, you know, it's funny, people just come out and tell somebody that, you know, knows all about these sharks, about stuff that doesn't even exist, about a brain being small. Well, what part of the brain are you talking about? Are you talking about the lobes? Are you talking about the olfactory sacs? Are you talking about the midbrain, the hindbrain, which is the medulla oblongata? I mean, it's a complex system. This is what you get. That's what you get from 400 million years being on the earth. How long has man been there? I'll let you guys look that up. But we're nowhere near these things as far as advanced. And I'm not saying they're more intelligent than us and they're going to go out there and start competing in the car market. I'm just saying that these fish are a lot more intelligent than people give them credit for. And that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to try to get back with the show the next couple days here and make this Sharks Happen week. But until then, always remember, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.